said strength is measured in pounds. Speed is measured in seconds. Courage cannot be measured. Today I want to talk to the church about courage. And although strength may be able to be measured in pounds, speed can be clocked with a stopwatch. Courage, I think, can be measured. It's just, we know it when we see it. We just know it when we see it. And what we just saw was, in my life, one of the most incredible demonstrations of courage. I actually remember that, 1992. And one thing is, I just love watching the Olympics. I just think, because there's such a spiritual battle going on inside of every athlete. See, we just see this little brief second, this little brief slice of someone's life. But you know about divers, you know about the gymnasts, you know about all the individual sports I'm talking about. They've been training since they're 4 or 5 years old for that one race. And to see a hamstring tear, and to see the pain on that boy's face, I will never forget that. I was 29 years old, I guess, when that was going on. And that race, he was really called to be one of the winners, back from Great Britain. But that's not his story, that's our story. We're honest with ourselves. We really look back. We all have a clip like that in our life. I see a man sitting before me today that reminded me it's been a year since he moved through a moment like that in his life. I see a woman sitting before me who has moved through more moments in her life of healing, of running that race, of falling down and getting up. So today I want to talk about another archetypal idea, the idea of courage, spiritual courage. And I want to read from 2 Chronicles, chapter 20. And there was a king of Judah named Jehoshaphat. And he was facing a multitude of armies coming against the people of Israel from every direction. And it was apparently a no-win situation. And so what Jehoshaphat does is he calls the people together. And the first thing they do is they sought counsel from God. Called the people together, and he just sought prayer. And he was in fear. It says he was in fear, and in great fear he calls the people. And you can imagine the mob of people all around, focusing on the fears. What are we going to do? The Ammonites are coming from the east. The Midianites are coming from the west. They're coming from the south. They're going to kill us. They're going to take our women. They're going to take our property. You can just imagine all the chatter going on. But one man named Jahaziel gets a divine idea. And this one man is standing among a crowd, just like one thought in our mind can stand up to a multitude of crazy fears. One idea in our mind can stand up to that feeling of being overwhelmed we get when we don't know what to do. And Jahaziel says, King Jehoshaphat, listen. Jehoshaphat represents the courage in us. It represents our spiritual discernment, our ability to go to God and not the problem. Okay? And Jehaziel says, King Jehoshaphat, listen. So number one lesson to ask ourselves, who do we listen to? You know, who are you going to call when your hamstring rips? Who are you going to call when the boss calls you? Who are you going to call when that test comes in from the doctor that you didn't expect? Who are you going to call when you feel like your whole life has fallen down on the track? And Jehaziel says, God spoke to me, and God says to you, Jehoshaphat, Spirit, the dwelling God in us, always speaks to our courage, even if it's one tiny sliver of courage. And this is what the indwelling Spirit of the Lord says inside us. Do not be afraid. Do not lose hope because of this huge army. The battle is not yours. It's mine. This is God speaking inside of us. The Holy Spirit, the activity of God, the courage, that moment when we have to make the decision, who are we going to call? Tomorrow, go down against them. You will not have to fight this battle. But listen to what you do have to do, Jehoshaphat. Take your position. Stand firm. You will see how I will save you. Do not be afraid. Do not lose hope. Go out and face them tomorrow. I will be with you. My friends, this is our story. The battle you are trying to fight today, it is not your battle. It's God's battle. Whether you understand God as the higher power, whether you understand God as that Christ's presence, whether you understand God as the source of everything that is, your understanding of God is a theological discussion, and it's irrelevant to what I'm about to tell you. The battle you are fighting today is not yours. It's God's. There is someone today among us, and they came here seeking their healing, whether it's physical or whether it's emotional. There is someone else here today that is seeking financial freedom, that is overwhelmed by bills and finances. And what we're really seeking is to declare, God is my supply in this situation. I myself am vigorously trying to hold on to the principle that God is good all the time, even in the things that just overwhelm me on a daily basis. Yet I know the battle is not mine. I know the answer is to be still and to let go. I know the battle is God's. God called me here. God called you here. Whatever your position is, whatever your relationship is, whatever your physical situation is, whatever your finances look like, the battle is not mine and it's not yours. There is a power greater than you at work if we are less willful and simply willing to let that power work. You see, because it is God's battle through us, victory was already ours before the challenge even showed up. But we forgot that. The very battle today, let me tell you, is won or lost in our mind. Okay? Where that is the place where the battle is going on. You are not battling an economy. You are not battling a diagnosis. You are not battling another person. I know that's what the appearance may look like. The battle you are fighting is in your mind. The battle I fight every day as a pastor of this church is in my mind. So the question is not, what am I going to do? How am I going to fix this? How am I going to win? How am I going to get letters? How am I going to do this? How am I going to do that? The battle is not mine. The question is, can I claim victory right now because I believe in God? Or does some doubting Thomas show up in our consciousness and say, yes, I believe in God, but I have to have that money today. Yes, I believe in God, but I must have relief and I must have healing right now because deliverance will come too late if it doesn't come shaped in this way, dressed like this, in an envelope right now. Yes, I believe in God, but I don't see how God's going to answer here. That's what we hear most of the time. We're honest with ourselves. Yes, I believe God as I put in the prayer in the prayer box. Yes, I believe God as I call my prayer partner. Yes, I believe God as I look at the finances of the church. Yes, I believe God as I wait for the results of my blood test. Yes, I believe God, but I don't know how God can work this out. You know what has to happen? You have to see a big stop sign in your mind. Stop right there. Remember that Meatloaf song? Stop right there. I tried. But you have to see that stop sign the minute you question how God is going to answer the problem. And I'll tell you why. Because we don't have to see the how today. We don't have to know how God is going to be God in our life. That is none of our business. Our business is to stand still and proclaim it is done. Did you notice Jehoshaphat, the metaphysics, the archetypal idea in the biblical story is Jehoshaphat wasn't told to go and hide and God will take care of them. No, courage had to show up. He had to go and stand in the battlefield without a weapon. Because that's where God works through us. We have to go and show up for every job interview. I don't care if it's the 10,000th one we went on. We just have to show up. We have to show up for church and pray. We have to show up for the 14 prosperity class. I don't care if we've taken it 5 times. We have to show up for the Wednesday night prayer circle if we want healing. I don't care how many times we went. Jehoshaphat, the battle, the army had to show up. And just so you know, the way that the story resolves is all the other armies started attacking each other. And they didn't have to do a thing. Our business is to stand still and declare in our mind, it is done, it is God's, I am victorious. You see, it's a mental battle. It's a realignment of our mental state. It's a state of trustful defensivelessness. Defenselessness. Okay? That's courage, baby. It doesn't take courage to be a bully. All right? Because we know from elementary school, we know the bullying, we know what's going on in schools about. The bully always picks on someone less powerful, so it's a guaranteed win. And we know the bully operates from fear and insecurity. I mean, this is basic psychology. Jehoshaphat did not say, God, what are you crazy? Look at all these armies. I have to build up, God, build me up a bigger army. Jehoshaphat didn't cry out, God, I have to have this help right away, or it's going to be too late. I know this, God. Don't you see it, God? Jehoshaphat didn't think hard and start to control the problem. And the most important thing, I think this typology shows us, this story, is Jehoshaphat did not begin to hold on to thoughts of defeat and exhaust himself with the doubt in his heart. Remember, the doubt had to be there. He had to have that idea, just like we have. What? God spoke to you and said the battle is not mine, it's God's. And all of Jerusalem and Judah is being surrounded by two different armies from both sides. Jehoshaphat had to have that egoic thought. But just declare, I will pray. And what he eventually does is before the battle, he sends out the singers. And I will sing. You see, did he begin to hold the thoughts of defeat? No. He called the people together, they prayed, and they sang. And he simply remembered over and over, I'm sure you ought to remember it, the battle is God's, the battle is God's. I am not going to fight my way out of this one. I am not going to fight my way out of this one. We are outnumbered, physically. We are outnumbered by military might. We are going to just trust. And I realized that virtually all of us, we really admire people who can demonstrate a spirit of openness and defenselessness in their lives. We're all inspired by Jesus, who teaches to turn the other cheek and walk the second mile. We're all inspired by the life of Gandhi. I don't think anybody here isn't inspired by the way Gandhi handled India that led for freedom from colonization. Yet we have this idea in our mind that it's difficult to emulate them in our own lives because it seems a certain amount of defensiveness is absolutely necessary to ensure our personal safety. We spend our lives defending ourselves against all these threats, defending our egos against psychological attacks. To protect ourselves, think about it. We devote all this time and energy to building fences, to locking doors, to setting alarms, to enforcing laws, to secure our borders, to amass armies against enemies. We make up enemies, we make up threats, we create that which we don't want to manifest just from our own thoughts. And if we're honest with ourselves, we're equally vigilant against the assaults on our ego. We defend ourselves against criticism. Again, our pride goes crazy if we're insulted. Our self-esteem blows up if anyone would dare suggest that we're not good enough, or smart enough, or lovable enough. But let me tell you what the Course in Miracles says. It says our egos are so vulnerable and open to attack that sometimes just a little whisper can hurl our entire life into chaos. We don't anticipate something, an upset, a challenge, and all of a sudden, a totally wonderful day just gets hurled into chaos because of a Facebook post. Or because of something that somebody said that somebody else told us. The way that we allow our ego to just lose all rational control over our life is incredible. We don't wake up in the morning and say, I'm going to turn into a raving lunatic and go crazy on the drop of a dime. We don't plan that. I don't find any prayer request that says on Tuesday, let me go nuts. Don't put a prayer request in here because I'll pray on it. And so this Course in Miracles teaches that only defenselessness ensures our safety. And that doesn't make sense to our rational mind. But as it does with so many things, the Course in Miracles overturns our conventional view of defending ourselves. You see, defending ourselves did not deliver the payoff that we think we'll get. In fact, the exact opposite happens. And we know this from Jesus. We know this from Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. We know this from Gandhi. We know this from every great pacifist. We know this from Mother Teresa. Instead of giving safety, defenses actually make us vulnerable to the attack in our own mind. Because we're planning the attack, and then we're defending against not the attack from the outside. We're creating the attack in our mind. Remember I told you the battle is in our mind. And so we're defending against an attack that we're creating in our own mind that has not happened yet. And so we defend ourselves instead of the giving of freedom from fear that we think we'll get if we just fight hard enough and defend ourselves strong enough. Defenses actually keep us in the grip of fear because they keep our mind worrying about what will they do next, what will happen next, how will I pay this next, what will happen. We just make stuff up when we're in defense mode. So how can we live with a life of defenselessness, how can we really embrace the archetype that Jehoshaphat in us is courage that can rise over anything and everything that is in that prayer box or in our heart or in our house today? I can answer that with 2 words. But God. Very simple, but God. You see, any obstacle is God's opportunity. So embrace the fear, but then don't put the period at the end of the fear. Just think to yourself, but God. Embrace the diagnosis. Embrace the reality of the situation today. Don't go into denial and then think to yourself, but God. You see, sometimes, in my own life, I found that the more cut off I am from my own human egoic solution, the more willing I am is to let God be the solution. Did you hear that? More I'm cut off in my mind that this is so hopeless and there's no way out of this mess, the more willing I am to let God be God in the situation. What if I just let God be God in the situation without going through all that inner turmoil? See, we can stand to anything and courageously, like Jehoshaphat, say, God is my strength, God is my power, all victory is in God. There is a power greater than myself manifesting it in this situation. We know this through all of history. We see historical figures who have laid down and in laying down have risen above insurmountable obstacles. And what we've seen is the power came just at the right time always and never a moment too late. I will finish this race today. I will heal my mind today. I will stop living in fear about money today. And these ideas, these archetypal ideas, they take some real courage. You see, Derek Redmond had no chance of winning. Play the second clip, please. Watch this.
At number 28, an Olympic image that if you watched it at the time, Barcelona 1992, will live with you forever.
You know, this is only the qualifying.
Derek Redmond, the best form he's shown since he broke the British record.
This is a qualifying. Now watch the time.
Cuban Mendes has got Redmond away, and so too in line number 3 is Steve Lewis. But Redmond's got off very badly indeed, and so too is Ismail Al-Qatar. Dynamax leads the fractional leader. Part of Nigeria has gone very quickly, and Redmond has broken down. He's on the track, kneeling down, and Derek Redmond, well, his injury problem, the jinx has struck again.
The race goes on, life goes on. Look at him. He's in his mind right now. The battle is in his mind. He is no longer running the race with anybody or anything outside of himself. The clock is now, he's still 12, 14 seconds later. Watch this, the race. 20 seconds later. He's still, now watch it. He stood up. Sometimes we have to stand up in that very situation that has thrown us to the ground, even if we have to limp through it. We have to hold our head up high. Because notice what happens here. It is the very pain in his face that inspires 65,000 people to start winning. The race is over. There's no longer about getting a gold medal. And look who comes out. His dad. His dad pushed his way through the security, and his dad tells him, stop and shield up the finish. And the dad says in an interview, he wants to meet you. He started his way. That dad is sort of God in us. It is the very pain he was experiencing that caused the whole race to move from outside a stadium of 65,000 people to inside the stadium of his mind. God. He wasn't fighting the other others, but God. He finished that race. It was over, and he came in last. But God. What race are we running today? We're all running a race in our mind. What are you praying for today? We're all praying for something in our mind. What obstacle has knocked you down? We're all moving through something physically, emotionally, financially, with relationships, with family, with friends. We're all in that place in our mind right now. But God, you write a prayer request. Make sure at the end you write, but God. And then just leave it blank. See, Carolyn Miss says that people who heal should stop arguing with themselves about what they need to do. Imagine his mind, we're down on our knees. He knew the race was over. Years and years and years of running for that 140 seconds to run a 440. And he's on the ground. The stretcher comes out. We don't want a stretcher anymore. We want God. We don't want disability anymore. We want God. We want to stop arguing ourselves and embrace what we need to do. What I'm suggesting to you today is all you need to do is stand up in your mind. Just stand up and take that first step, because once we start moving, the momentum that this God takes over. The second thing Carolyn Miss says is to stop looking for anyone or anything else in the way. We know excuses, making justification, rationalizing. It takes us out of God and into our ego. So let's just begin to pray and let grace take over. If you really think there's something blocking the answer to your prayer right now, whatever it is, take a deep breath with me. Repeat these words, but God. Say them with me, but God. But God. So I pray for the church. I pray for your specific situation. The person here receiving healing, but God. The person challenged by finances, but God. Unity Church of Hollywood, but God.